Good afternoon, and it is your girl, Leanne Antoine, right here on Chewing It Over, and we are going to be chewing it over. Remember, I am here every second Tuesday of the month, and I would really hate for you to miss it. And for those of you that constantly tune in when I'm here and keep on following my matters and the issues that I'm bringing up, I just want to thank you. It is the 12th of October today, and we are celebrating Black History Month. I have to say, I feel like I'm celebrating Black history every day. And have been lots of people who have asked me what I'm going to do to celebrate it and how am I bringing this to the forefront. And I feel like I've done so much work in this space already to bring visibility and representation just in the work that I'm doing every day. That for me is bringing Black history into the present. Now, my guest today, and I have posted her about already, so she's not a surprise to people, but my guest today is Natasha Mills. And if I give you guys a little bit of a backstory, because I think it's important, it would just give you an idea as to why I've asked Natasha to come onto the show with me. So Natasha Mills is a physiotherapist. She is a success and transition coach. She has worked in Olympic sport, international sport within her physiotherapy career. And hi, Talita. And when everything, I'm going to say, erupted with Black Lives Matter last year, and there was the whole takeover on social media with the black tile, Natasha very, very boldly posted the black tile in a physio and therapist support group. So there were lots of different clinicians within the group. And when she did that, lots of people responded in a way that they felt they couldn't understand why that needed to be done. What was the relevance? That it wasn't topical. There were lots of different comments about it. And at the time, people prompted me by tagging me to respond to the issue on Facebook. This was on Facebook. And at the time, I just remember being in clinic. I remember feeling very washed out, very fatigued with everything that was going on. And I wrote a message that stated that I was in clinic, but as soon as I had an opportunity, I would respond. But I also didn't feel like words were enough. So I did a video. And at the time, there were about 2,000 practitioners, clinicians within the group who then were like, oh my goodness, there's actually racism within physiotherapy. And for some people, this was the first acknowledgement of any issue, that's how I'm going to raise it, within, I'm going to call it allied health, potentially, definitely within physiotherapy. So without further ado, I am bringing on Natasha so that we can have a conversation. I'm telling you right now, I will be having Natasha back because there's no way that we can dissect some of the things that we're going to talk about today in 30 minutes or less than 30 minutes and make the most of it. But without further ado, I'm bringing on Natasha Mills.
Hey, hey.
Hi, welcome to the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. And it's an honor, because I think that your actions then have given me a lot of visibility. And I think I can probably safely say that I probably would never have dropped the tile into the group, myself. Even if I was thinking we're not having the conversations within physiotherapy, we've never been having the conversations within physiotherapy at that point. So I've always been conscious that I've always been someone who's just gone and got on with it. Do you know what I mean?
I totally get that.
To me, to have you on the show as we celebrate Black History Month was just so important. In my head, I was thinking I'm going to do the show on my own. And then I thought, no, actually, Black History Month has been about so many people coming together collectively, even allies, to build the profile and representation of Black people within industries. And I wanted to celebrate that with you. So I'm really, really grateful that you have come on. I want to go back to the nitty gritty. And I know we speak about lots of things, but I want to go back to why you put the tile in the group when you did. Like, just tell me what was going through your head, because I want to understand that as well. Why did you drop that in?
I think, again, I'm going to be real with everyone here. I did not want to do this because I'm having a week off, self-care. I preach it all the time. And I was like, I don't want to go there. I dropped it because I've been in a really privileged position where I had a team of therapists in Warwick University, where it was a really diverse team. I was the lead physio. We'd created this amazing team and this amazing safe space where we could all talk about those things. So I almost forgot that the conversation wasn't being had elsewhere. So, you know, my black physios, my Asian physios, my kind of all my massage therapists, everything, we all just were like, oh yeah, this is like, you know, so much has been going on. So we were just talking about these things that have affected us and continue to affect us in physiotherapy, but we had a commonality. And then COVID struck. I was being told that I was being made redundant, which meant that 35% of my team, which were from ethnic backgrounds, were also being got rid of. It wasn't handled particularly well. There was lots of structural hierarchy issues within there. I was one of the only people in a leadership position person of colour in a leadership position in that department. So I was like already super triggered. And I was just dealing with all that stuff. And then George Floyd. You know, so many things have happened since then. And we all just were dealing with stuff. We're like, oh, we're dealing with COVID. We're dealing with the fact we might lose our jobs. We're dealing with this, you know, fear of our family, and everyone's dealing with this. And then that happened, and the world woke up for a minute. And you know what was worse was that we were like, oh my God, people are finally listening and wanting to talk about it, and I can't handle it. I haven't even got the space for this at the minute. But I was like, but they're listening, so let me talk. So then I just posted this tile, and I, again, stupidly optimistic. I love being optimistic. I was really surprised by the lack of reaction and the reaction I got. And then I was hugely triggered by the words that they used for you. Like I was, you know, it was like, why are you doing this here? You know, this isn't the space for it. And then the word they used for you was, Leanne, oh, so eloquently put. And I suddenly was triggered by the whole physiotherapy experience that I'd had, where, you know, you've got to fit in, you've got to like merge. You can't talk about things without offending people. But if you put it in the right words, in the right tone, I mean, I had a therapist who would constantly talk like this in front of people because that's the way he thought it'd be accepted. But then around me, he'd be like blah, 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 talking just normally. It really, I did it naively, and then I was hugely triggered.
There are a couple of things in that when you talk. So firstly, the fact that when the team that you were working with were made redundant, you know, 3/4 of that team being, you know, of an ethnic background, and the fact that in our minds, like that weighs on us, like it's almost okay to get rid of those people because of their color or despite their color, like. And I have to say, there are times when certain things happen within a workplace that is true. Like in your mind, you're going, has that happened to me because I'm someone of color? Like if I wasn't black, would that look the same? Would they handle me differently? Like, and then this then spills into, you know, people of color. Do they know their rights? Do they know where to go to get support and help? And a lot of people, and I'm going to say of color, don't know where to go, and they don't know what's available. And then also the fact, like you said, people then making reference, for example, to me about, you know, am I always putting it forward so eloquently? Like most of the time when I speak to people, I speak very raw and I speak very openly. Whether the tone makes that fall on you slightly differently, I can't vouch for that for the person who's receiving the information, because that's so subjective, you know. But what I remember at that time, and I've watched that video back only twice.
Oh, I couldn't even do it. I couldn't go back
and
there.
It was only really recently that I went back.
Well done.
And when I went back, like I am in a state. I am at a point where I've lost inches off my hairline through my own stresses. this stuff has all snowballed because at the time I'd lost my great grandmother, my great aunt, work was, and then, and they were in the States, and, and I'd been subjected to some stuff in the States, and then having this thing that erupts and just feeling like I am so exhausted. And I was so exhausted, right, that I could not find the words in text to be able to write a message that I felt would be poignant. So I took to a video because I felt like it was the only way I could truly touch your heart for you to feel what I was saying, for people to feel what I was feeling at that time, that pain and that sorrow. And that wasn't just now because of George Floyd's death. That's like years of pain. Yes. Do you get what I'm saying? And I think that the people that came to me, people came to me who didn't know me when I did that video. They emailed, they sent me LinkedIn messages. I had text messages from people I didn't know the numbers. I had this influx of people that then wanted to reach out. And almost some of them just like, I didn't know this existed. This wasn't on my radar. How has this been there and I haven't known? And I think it also made some people really challenge their own practices at work, like thinking about students they haven't treated well, thinking about members of staff they haven't treated well, and I've been there. I've seen some ethnic minorities being treated badly at work, but I've not been in a position, or never felt like I've been in a position where I could stand up for that person, other than saying to them, I'm here if you need to talk, but not being able, but almost feeling helpless to that person. And again, you and I've had these conversations about certain situations being racist, prejudice, but you can't really prove it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's perception, isn't it? We walk in different shoes. So it just takes, to be a good human, you put yourself in other people's shoes, you get collective empathy, but sometimes it feels that no one really wants to be in our shoes or see what it's like in our shoes, or even admit that we've got different shoes, what it must be like to wear them. And that's the bit that's hard, because there's no acknowledgement. And I think I just kind of want to touch on what you kind of said. It's a lifetime of pain. And what's really interesting is I went into there probably in the same position as you, in pain. I might have posted it a different way, but I went in pain. I didn't get any support from anyone in the group. And that made me feel further isolated from the profession. Which again is my own baggage. I deal with my own stuff. I've got loads of therapists, coaches. I've worked with them all my life to deal with stuff, but I felt further isolated. But we had a great chat about things, and I felt really connected to you, and I felt really connected to people who were similar to me, but further away from people who didn't have the same kind of idea as me, because of the way that I may have put it across. And I was like, I don't want to apologize for the way that I bring up these topics. I want to be able to talk openly and freely. And I think the way you kind of said is you bring a lifetime of pain, and it's right. It was George Floyd. It's knowing that that was happening every month in the States, and that it has happened in the UK, Stephen Lawrence. Watching COVID-19 play out disproportionately affecting people of minorities. Like we're still grieving from the Grenfell Tower, the Windrush stuff. All of this stuff was there, and it's sitting there underneath the surface, as well as our own lived experience. And we're kind of just going, please listen to us. Oh, and we have to go to work and deal with this from patients and from doctors, consultants, and from each other.
And I think one of the things for me, and we're talking, you mentioned the Windrush, you mentioned a couple of pivotal moments. I always express the fact that I'm of West Indian heritage, but I'm born and raised in Britain, right? You're of mixed heritage. I think you said to me, mother white, father black. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what's important to realise as well is my family is, so my British family is Scottish as well, which I think it also, it's brilliant because it adds a different identity in there as well. I have strong Scottish roots as well.
And with this then, what I'm always trying to explain to people is my lens, the way I'm seeing things, will be different to your lens and how you see things.
Absolutely.
So just because we agree on the need for an increased amount of representation and visibility, the way that we might go about that might be different. The way that we feel about the need for that might be different. Like our drivers might be different. And then I always try to identify this as well. Like one Black person's experience, acknowledgement of racism, prejudice, or their struggles in the workplace will be different to another's. And I think it's important for people to recognize that, yes, Black lives matter, but the context of that for each Black person is different, you know?
Very much
For
so.
some people, and I can say this, you know, having, you know, because I say mixed race friends, Black friends, white friends, etc. But that, for example, for mixed race people, I know I was watching something the other day and we talk about identity, like which way are people identifying more, for example. And some of this might be different, that maybe the cultural side of things, there's a bit more might be a bit more cultured on your Scottish side than it is on your West Indian side, or do you see what I mean? So how you grow and the cultural experiences that you're exposed to will definitely shed a different light on how you see things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and the way I describe this to people as well is that if racism and structural racism didn't exist, I wouldn't have experienced it, because I grew up with a white mom, I had a white brother, I got white grandparents. The fact that I can have a chat with you, Leanne, and we've got some commonalities and similar stories, show that there's a commonality there, and it's how sometimes we're perceived and we enter a room. And that, to me, when I talk to people and have similarities, just as we as women have similarities with women, we're not all the same, but yeah, we have similarities. You go, oh, well, actually, then we've got some work to do here, because in reality, you know, I shouldn't have experienced it. My experience should be the same as my brothers, my white brothers, should be exactly the same in reality, but it's not. So what's the difference? I walk into a shop with a mask on, with a tracksuit on, a mask on, in the middle of the pandemic, and I'm followed around by the security guard. My white husband is not. So there's a difference there. And he was like, oh my God, I wouldn't have even noticed. And I was like, yeah, because they weren't following you. So it's like there's a... Yeah,
my female friend expressed the same thing the other day about going into Sainsbury's and being followed. And she sort of followed her way to an empty side of the shop, and the security guard was still following. And, you know, she sort of confronted him and said, you're supposed to be a security guard for the shop. You know, this stuff is still happening. And we laugh, you know, and I chuckle about it because, you know, almost nervously, I think, because
it's true.
Because it's true, number one. But despite all the work that everybody thinks that they're doing, you know, we need more Black people on boards. We need more Black physios. We need more Black allied health professionals. We need more, you know, ethnic backgrounds on all of these, in all of these panels and in all of these places. But we're still being subjected to this very openly in supermarkets, out on the street, despite all the conversations and all the recognition that this is now having. And I'm not going to lie, it breaks my heart, because I feel like this work, and I know you've done a post on LinkedIn and you stated, you know, you didn't want to come on, and you...
For a split second.
For a split second, but you did. But also expressing within that you know that this work is bigger than you, you know, and it's not just about your emotions. And I stand in that all the time. You know, I say all the time, I don't want every time I come on to the show for everyone to think I'm going to talk about being Black, you know, and that my issues are only ever surrounded about being Black. But I am a person of color on this show, and I know that a year ago I wasn't doing this, you know, and a year ago I didn't have this visibility, and a year ago I wasn't, you know, hadn't been elected to be on council. Like, do you get what I'm saying? So, if you're not involved in it and you're not loving it, you can listen on the other days. But when I'm here, I'm going to be taking people from different backgrounds, diverse backgrounds, and I want to bring them to the forefront. And I want the people that are listening to really feel my passion, your passion, their passion about their subject matters. And I want us to get together as allies to drive behind these things. You know, somebody said to me the other day, they wanted to support Black History Month. And I said, we are not supporting Black History Month. You are celebrating Black History Month. You are not supporting it. You know, you are celebrating it, even with all its pain. Because for everything that those Black people have been through in the past, or the past experiences that you and I have been exposed to, we are trying to make a future that gives us more visibility, more representation, and means that we can change some of the nuances in the future for our people, the people that we are constantly supporting and what we live and stand by every day. I wanted to challenge also, you know, what it's been like for you working in an Olympic area, you know, in an Olympic field as a therapist of color. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And I also wanted to talk about what that looks like, not just for you at a level of as a senior therapist, but also then for the types of sports that you're working within and the players that you were then treating, you know, your reception in that as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So I kind of left elite sport physiotherapy from the Olympics perspective when I got made redundant after working with Great Britain Badminton. And it, you know, that was it was a diverse enough sport. You know, it's not as diverse as what it is, but you go abroad and you know, Asia, India and stuff, you know, they've got some of the best badminton players in the world. But then our teammates, the GB team, would go to Russia and we'd have to kind of all stick together because we might get kicked out of a restaurant for being people of colour. So being able to kind of be around an athlete who, like, be the physio, an athlete can walk into a room and go, oh, I don't want to go to Russia. And you're like, I feel you. We don't have to talk about it. We just go, I feel you. Like, we know. We just know. And it's so important. And that's the same. So I've gone back to physiotherapy working in cricket. Now, I know there's not much diversity, like, you know, super high up in cricket. There's starting to be, which is great. But the team's really diverse. And actually, again, it's just that acknowledgement. It's actually sitting there looking at people grouped together. So they all sit together, you know, some of the Asians sit together, the white, you know, people sit together, and we're kind of, I can then challenge that and just go, you know, are you having lunch together instead of in your little groups? In your little groups, come on. And they look at me and they go, oh, yeah, good point. Or there's just a knowing. And that gives people that real, just a little nod. If someone says something that's a little bit ignorant, we can all look at each other and go, oh, and we can choose to tackle it or not, but they feel like somebody understands them. So I think that's really good. And then I work as a mentor and coach, so performance lifestyle in Olympic sport and Paralympic sport at the minute. And I just keep raising the questions, especially around Paralympic sport. You know, it's not as diverse, and I'm really passionate about social economic diversity. And I think that's something that I want to keep bringing up because, you know, Paralympic sport is not very diverse. And actually, if you come from a disadvantage, I don't like using that word, but disadvantaged background financially, you can't afford an $8,000 wheelchair to get about to even access sport. You need parents then be able to drop you off, and some parents need to be carers. You know, if your parents are having to work, they can't even afford the care for you to then even get to sport. So it's just having those conversations. The best thing about sport, though, is the change happens a lot quicker. So I think it's really slow. And then I come back to physiotherapy and we're still using the term BAME. And I'm like, no, we're so slow.
and you know, I did do, so my very first talk with Arnie Puntis, up on YouTube, it was posted up on YouTube, and somebody actually came in and was like, I don't like the fact that you're using the term BAME, you know, BAME. And I did respond to that person, you know, and often in relation into context and for the flow of conversation and for being able to access people. You said loads of things that really, I say, tickled me. I did a High Rocks event. I did the High Rocks event. It's 8 1-kilometer runs and a workout after each run. And I did that. It was 1 hour and 38 minutes it took me to get through on my own. And at that event, I'm very conscious in a space when I go, and it doesn't matter where I go. Instinctively, I scan the room. Who doesn't scan the room, Natasha? Yeah. And when I scan the room, I can see that there are very few Black women at this fitness event. But then you go back and you look at the adverts. Why would Black women be on it when they can't see anybody that looks like them?
Yeah, you can't be you unless you can see you. Can't be you unless you can see you.
And I think it's so important that more Black women, you know, start to get involved, more people of colour, more women start to get involved in these sports and activities. Because actually, we've got the potential to do exceedingly well. You know, we've got the potential to train. And again, you know, all of this stuff is, it is so deep. But if I draw back and I go to, right, in order for me to eat healthy, I'm not going to have rice and potatoes and macaroni cheese pie, let's say. Yeah. Now I'm switching it up and I'm going to have my protein and my vegetables. But, you know, in my heritage, we love food and we love those carb heavy foods, right? So what you're trying to unpick in my mind is, even for us as Black people, some of the things that have been so consistent, even within our culture and our heritage.
Food is love, food is being cared for, food is more than
social,
food. Yeah.
Food is conversation, all of it. Your grandmother cooks a meal, you don't forget how she makes that boiling chicken, and all of it. You know? And I think that so much of it is also about us as people evolving, you know, and recognizing that process and how we can bring other people along with us. I think I'm going to do the High Rocks event, and I'm going to do it with a man of color, you know, which delights me. Share my journey. He's not Black, but he is of color, and I think it's just, if you're not doing it in your corner of your earth, even though it's small, but if you're not doing it, it never has an impact. It never reaches anyone. And I think some of the work that I'm doing is to touch my godchildren. You know, my godson's 5, his sister's 8. You know, it's to touch, even I say I'm their earth mother. She's 10, you know, and she's white. But can she see what I'm doing when she says, oh, she's going to do karate? Well, Leanne was doing karate. And it's just about having a really positive rippling effect within the entire community, you know? And I do think allyship is just so important. In the end, you know, I say I'm lucky. Gemma Oliver, you know, she allowed your post to go up. She didn't restrict that. She allowed my response. She didn't restrict that. She was very, very welcoming. And I think this kind of traction, you know, we're still waiting, and I say it all the time, and a little bit of me feels almost awkward saying it so live on air, but you are waiting for the white person at the top to open the door.
I say open the door, but sit at the table, you know. I don't even want the door. Yeah, I want to be sat at the table, and I'm getting an invitation to more table.
You know, and I know, I feel awkward saying it. I feel awkward saying it live, but that is the truth. You know, I'm so grateful to the people in our space, like yourself, who continue to do such amazing work, Natasha. And I know, even when you feel exhausted, please continue to walk this journey with me.
I will, and you'll keep holding me to account for that.
I will.
Can I just make a request? Is I keep trying to say to people is, if your network isn't diverse, like make it diverse. And the best way to do that now is on LinkedIn. There's no excuse, you know. If your LinkedIn is full of the same types of people with the same name, switch it up, add some different people, and then start seeing some different point of views. And I actually invited people in a networking, an ED&I networking group to do the same. They still haven't added me. So I'm going to challenge them healthily again to say, you know, like, add some of us, because that's a way. It's not opening the door, but, you know, it's a little insight. It's just putting it ajar. And I think that's a simple way of just doing something really simple that can be really effective.
Definitely. I just want to thank you for coming on. for sharing this.
We've got so much to say. We're going to have to chat for about an hour.
There's always so much to say. I should have asked Jack for an extended amount of time. I do hope that the people that have tuned in have really enjoyed our conversation. Natasha, if people want to find you, where can they go?
So just add me on LinkedIn. So Natasha Lee Mills, just find me. I'm there. I'm pretty vocal, but it's always with a positive intention. So just find me on there, and there's a link to everything else I do.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Natasha, and I will
Thanks
have you back on.
me.
You're very welcome.
I've really enjoyed it. I can't wait to talk to you after.
I'm looking forward to a glass of bubbles face to face at some point. I think we need to get that in the diary.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Natasha, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks a lot.
Bye. I just want to say thank you to everyone that's listening. I'm 1 minute over. You are not supporting Black History Month in October. You are celebrating Black History Month in October. But I want to encourage you all to celebrate Black history every day. And for every person of colour, particularly Black people at this time, if they're in your team, if they work with you, if you're trying to get to know somebody from a Black cultured Black background, be open with your conversation, but recognise it is not their job to educate you. That is also your job. On that note, I am radioing out. It is Leanne Antoine here on Chewing It Over. I love to say that I am the Oprah Winfrey of healthcare. Have a wonderful rest of day. And if you would like to reach out to me, please do on any of the comment sections on any of these streams. And if I don't get back to you, Jack and the team will prompt me to get back to you. This show has been an absolute pleasure to do. Take care, and I will see you next month.